Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Be Brave podcast with me, your host, Grace. Today I'm going to be joined by Taylor, an eating disorder recovery coach that emphasizes the importance of identifying your values as a key step towards recovery. In today's episode, Taylor will share a bit about her own experience with an eating disorder, and we will also chat about the relationship between exercise, overexercise, and eating disorders. If you think this topic may be triggering or something you aren't ready to hear about, please skip this episode for today. So, without further ado, here is Taylor. Hey Taylor, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Before we get into talking about exercise and all things fitness and recovery, I'd love for you to tell us a bit about your own experience with an eating disorder and overexercising.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was diagnosed at age 12 with anorexia. One of my main problems that I struggled with was overexercise. I was an athlete from a very young age, just had a big misunderstanding of what proper exercise was and took it a little bit too far through my sport and through just being very competitive. It was hard for me to have a stopping point. So.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so young.
It was, yes.
Yeah, it keeps happening. People just younger and younger and getting diagnosed with eating
Yeah.
disorders.
Oh, yeah, all the time. It's really happening more often than I think it should be, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so difficult. I think it's so true. Often over-exercising is hidden under this guise of extreme dedication to your sport or your fitness. How do you think people can tell if they're actually over-exercising or just dedicated to a sport?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about the reason behind why you're doing it. I think there is that dedication to sport, but if the motive is just that, I am dedicated to my sport, I'm taking care of my body, I'm fueling my body to properly perform, that's different than I'm going to eat healthier and be smaller for my sport because that isn't necessarily gaining the same outcome. So if your goal and intention is to be the best I possibly can at my sport, that's again fueling your body correctly, relying on the people like coaches and a lot of times colleges and high-end athletes have people that are making these plans for them, nutritionally. If you're willing to follow that and willing to see changes within your body that are required for your sport, I think that's a very healthy level of awareness around your sport and competition. Whereas if you're constantly trying to change your body, constantly trying to manipulate food and eat as little as possible, or you're finding yourself creating bad habits around food and exercise, that's a very different story.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, looking into your motives instead of the actual actions, because the
Mm-hmm.
actions can sometimes be intertwined in like
Yes.
what is actual dedication to sport and what is over exercising. But if you're really looking at your motives behind it, that'll tell you the
Mm-hmm.
truth where it's coming from. It's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you go about stopping over exercising?
I honestly, for me, it was a lot of it was cold turkey. I really got to a point of where weight restoration was necessary. I wasn't able to play my sports. So at this point, for me, it came down to I can't exercise because I can't play my sport. That was my fitness. And if I tried to do anything beyond that, it was jeopardizing me getting back into my sport. And I came to that realization of like, okay, if I don't stop and take care of my health, gain the weight that's necessary, and then train again properly for my sport with the help of the people around me, I'm not going to be playing again. So it was very much a harsh realization and a very harsh stopping for me. It wasn't a wean off of, it was, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this until I get the help that I need, which was inpatient treatment and residential treatment, which doesn't allow a lot of exercise. So it was a very abrupt stopping point for me to really realize what I was doing was detrimental to my health and my sport.
Yeah. Is it okay if I ask what is your sport? What was, if you still do
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. So my sport was volleyball. I loved it. Played very competitive. I played club. I played high school. I played in college.
Cool.
Loved the sport. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's it's not as common in Australia, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Very
sounds like,
common in the US.
yeah. So I know that you went cold turkey, but was there anything else that really helped you?
Yeah, I actually relied a lot on like breath work and learning more of the meditation side of things. I dabbled in yoga a little bit just to get some like stretching and a little bit of movement in because that really is, at my core. I love to do that. But things like breathing really helped ground me and really learning about how to stay grounded because it is almost I'm looking for that like adrenaline rush. And when you are in a sport and you are exercising, it's a constant high. And I kind of needed to find my low and my baseline. So I had to rely on a lot of different like habits. So it was, I got really into art. I found I was really talented with art. I really found new hobbies, and then a lot of breath work and meditation, just learning that and all of those things.
Wow, I think that's amazing, really finding how to ground yourself and other ways to, do little acts of self care, art therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really nice. And I think it's not talked about a lot. Like
Yeah.
people think maybe you'll go on an antidepressant or anxiety
Mm-hmm.
medications, whereas there are things you can try first, like breath work
Absolutely.
and other forms
Mm-hmm.
of therapy. Like it's not all just talk therapy. There's, like you said,
Yeah.
yoga, breath work, art therapy, music therapy. I mean,
Yes.
it depends on what you're inclined to do, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think at some point too, like it really did help relying on these other hobbies because I had, at the time I was young, I had pets and it went from no exercise to taking my dog on a walk or we lived next door to my grandparents. I would take a walk down to my grandparents. It was this gradual, like adding back in of movement to where it kind of started with okay finding new hobbies which is art or like you said music or anything like that and it was like okay I can sit still while doing this but I'm engaged and then it went to the breath work where it was a little bit more body focus and all of that and then it went to some yoga and some stretching and then it went to a couple walks here and there and then it allowed my body a break but for me to still stay active enough in other areas that it was easier to sit with it.
I love that slow progression as well that you described. So the other therapy sort of being a bit of a distraction at the start
Mm-hmm.
and then moving slowly into getting in tune with your body again. I think that's
Yes.
really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these things that you did, are those the sort of tips that you give to other people to help them to stop over exercising?
Yeah, absolutely. I have people that come from all different spots that they're in. Some people are able to continue exercising with a little bit of adjustment to their routine and then really focusing on mindset of hey, like why are we doing this? Let's set up some values that these movements are aligning with. It's really about that mind body connection that I work on those types of people with. People that I don't necessarily need to stop exercising, but I need them to realize the why behind what they're doing so that they can continue with a sustainable progress and a sustainable lifestyle that they if they actually truly value exercise like let's create a healthy relationship with it and then I have some people where I do need to have them stop health is in jeopardy and they may need to seek higher level of care an outpatient team an inpatient team whatever that may be to where we do focus more on those slower movements maybe some stretching and maybe some mindfulness work associated with stretching to really try to get them in touch with mind and body because when you are over exercising for the wrong reasons and your health is jeopardized, we need that connection to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many people just block it out and just
Mm.
keep pushing even though their body does not want to allow it.
Yes, absolutely. And there's such a disconnect there that they don't know how to stop. So it is sometimes just cutting it off and being like we need to work on something differently.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what would you say to those people that, they're exercising every day and they just feel like they have to, or else their
Mm-hmm.
world is going to end?
Yeah, I think that's where we use that slow progression as well to where, okay, if we can stop and if they're doing 7 days a week, can we get it down to 5? And then can we get it down to 4? And it's like sometimes we can't just rip that band aid off. Some people can, some people can't. But it is that slower progression to where if 2 days a week, can we replace the weightlifting and the running with a walk? And then we progress back. Okay, so we got those 2 days out. Can we do 2 rest days now? And then it's 5 days a week. And then it's 3. And then it's 2. And then it's the chance to work on that connection with those slower movements of we can keep the walks going. We can learn more about yoga. We can learn more about stretching and the different forms of stretching. There's so many forms of stretching now that it is almost its own thing. So it is just about meeting the person where they're at and being willing to work with them in the direction that they need to go in order to build a healthier relationship long term.
Yeah. And I'm sure this comes into your work a lot as well, but I know for a lot of people, they have this feeling of, if I don't exercise the amount that I am right now, if I decrease that, that means I can't eat as much, or else I'm going to gain weight and like lose all my progress and physique. How do you sort of encounter that and deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's where that mindfulness comes in. I think that reconnection of body, mind, soul. We have to work on prioritizing our values. I'm always going to come back to values of, if you really think that the only reason you're exercising is to achieve a smaller body or so that you are allowed to eat, then exercise isn't aligning with those deep rooted values. Like, we need to reassess this and look at this before we can create a healthy relationship. So it is about finding a meal plan per se that works with fueling their body for the exercise they're doing. And if they're able to maintain that, okay, let's talk about that. Let's work on our relationship with exercise at that point, because I'm confident in you fueling your body. Yeah. If we can't meet those requirements, we're going to have to back off. There's just there's a lack of knowledge around it. And I think people that are in that spot just need kind of a hand to hold and say, hey, you're going to be okay. We just need to readjust what you're doing to make this more sustainable moving forward. Because if not, this isn't a lifestyle that you're going to be able to continue in a healthy manner. And we need to redefine goals and align them with values.
Yeah. I love that you've said that oftentimes these people just need a hand to hold, because I think that's one of the most important things. You know, these people are stuck in this sort of obsession and addiction to exercise. And when you're addicted to something, you feel like you can't live without it. And so for someone to tell you, no, you've got to go cold turkey, it feels like a huge part of you is being ripped away. And so just having someone there telling you, hey, you know, I've been there. Yeah. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Yeah, I agree. I think that's so huge in terms of, I did it and so can you. It may look different, but like, I'm here. I've got you. I know this is going to be hard. I can kind of see the road ahead a little bit. I've traveled that road before. We're both going to be good. You're going to be good. I'm going to help you through it. It's all going to be okay. Let's just start here. Where are you at?
Do you find that really sort of kind of rewarding in your work, being able to say to your clients and the people that you work with, hey, like, I've been there, you're going to be okay?
Yeah, I do. I think there's such a huge value in knowing that the person that is trying to help you has also done the work. Because sometimes, at least in my experience, a lot of times I felt talked at instead of sat next to. And it was really hard for me to trust those people, because it's like, you don't understand. And while no eating disorder is the same, there's a level of understanding when somebody has been through it, gone through the trenches, done the hard work, and come out on the other side and is thriving in life. Yeah. And I think that provides just a little bit of comfort, knowing that, hey, I'm not alone. You probably do get this to some extent. I think that's valuable.
I know for me, they would, like, my family would see me and they would try and comfort me and everything, but it didn't help, because I thought, you know, you haven't been there. You don't actually know. Like, you'll tell me everything will be okay. You don't know that. All I really wanted was to hear someone say, actually, I've done it too. And, you know, I didn't die. Like, not everything fell to pieces when I stopped exercising or when I started eating more.
Right. Yes, there's proof. And I think a lot of times with family, especially like you had mentioned, it's just like, you're telling me what to do because you're scared. And it's like, you don't understand my fear on the other side. So it's like, I understand you're scared because of what I'm doing and what I'm going through, but you have no idea how fearful I am as well. Yeah. And it's just so hard to stop what you're doing for somebody else's fear, to like give up that control of your own fear, to be like, oh, let me just cater to you because I know you're scared. It's like, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
And to hear somebody say like, hey, I did it, I get it, it was scary, I can validate that for you, but let's go through this together, and I'm going to take you step by step. We can bounce ideas off of each other. We've both been in similar situations. Like, let's just move forward together instead of being like, you need to do this and you need to do that. And it's a very different feeling and a talking to than rather than at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's unfortunately really common in the field of eating disorders professionals talking at people. You have to do this, or we're going to do this to you.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much working with people to help them where they're at and find a way for them to move forwards that works for them as well.
Absolutely. It's so individualized.
Yeah.
Has to be.
I love that you're talking about values as well. I've talked about it in many of my previous podcasts. This is something
Mm-hmm.
that sort of really kickstarted my recovery, really
Mm-hmm.
realizing, okay, what are my values? Like, all things aside, just stop thinking about the eating disorder for a minute. What do I actually value in life?
Mm-hmm.
And once I wrote those down, I think maybe like 5 or 10, somewhere between those, I was
Yeah.
like, does my eating disorder get me closer to or align with any of these? And it didn't,
Right.
in any way possible. And
Yep.
that's what sort of like, it just clicked a little bit in my head. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not leading the life that I want to in any way, shape, or form. This is going to
Right.
be incredibly hard, but I can't keep living like this.
Yeah.
I think it's so important that you include that in the work that you do, and I love that you talked about it today as well.
Absolutely. So important. I think it's huge how there's such a disconnect. And once people realize that, they're like, oh, I might need to make some adjustments here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to note I'm also a strong believer in like stopping all exercise until you've reached a stable point, like weight restoration, or just if you have a team. Obviously, for every person, it's individual, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, weight restoration is necessary no matter what your starting point is. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was recovering, I stopped all exercise until I was weight restored, and I found that it was actually really beneficial because it majorly reduced all of that physical stress and fatigue, and it forced me to overcome the need to exercise to feel worthy of
Mm-hmm.
food or to feel good enough. I was
Yeah.
wondering, so I know for myself, I didn't start exercising again until I reached weight restoration. But what would you say are some of the key markers that someone's ready to start incorporating exercise again?
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I do believe weight restoration is a big key to that. I think it's just taking stress off of, like you said, the body and the really kind of aligning yourself with why you're exercising. It just gives you that break that is necessary. And not only is your body really struggling when you're over exercising, but like levels and in your mind and in your brain are just not chemically balanced to make the decisions that are needed to around exercise. So I think some of my key markers I look for is when I ask somebody, okay, so like maybe we've restored weight, maybe we've done some work, we're eating a good baseline of a meal plan, if they're on a meal plan or they're just eating enough nutritionally to fuel their body, why do you want to start exercising again? And I think there's a huge difference in, well, I just want to do it again. I haven't exercised in so long versus somebody saying, I really feel like I'm ready to do this again and I want to do things differently. And really laying out a plan, being able to talk to that person and laying out a plan that progresses over time and not somebody that's just going to go back to the gym for hours a day or go for runs for hours a day. It's like somebody that is calm and willing to have the conversation around exercise and not just like, well, I'm weight restored, now I need to exercise again.
Yeah.
There's a vast difference in that. And you can tell in their body language as well when you're bringing up this conversation again on, are they anxious? Are they kind of just chomping at the bit here to get back into it? Or can they really come up with a concrete plan with me to make this last and not slip back into their eating disorder? And I don't think weight restoration is like the key marker of it. I think it's something that needs to happen, but I think it's somebody recognizing that they need to restore the weight in order to properly function with exercise.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people, once they have that realization, they are getting towards that point of being ready.
Yeah.
The capability of following a meal plan or following what the treatment team is advising in terms of nutrition is a huge marker for me because I'm not the dietitian, I'm not the therapist, but I am there to support in the action steps that they're taking. So if somebody is consistently following a meal plan and willing to challenge themselves and willing to eat enough to make exercise possible and daily living possible, huge marker for me if that's something that can be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. So not even just the weight restoration side, but more that mental side of, are
Mm-hmm.
you actually challenging those thoughts and those behaviors?
Mm-hmm.
And if you are, then maybe you are on the right path and you're ready to start getting back into it. And also
Mm-hmm.
always just coming back to that motivation side of things. So
Yeah.
are you wanting to get back into exercise simply because you feel like you need to exercise because you've
Mm-hmm.
taken time off? Or are you
Right.
wanting to get back into exercise because you love what your body can do for you when it actually has energy, and you
Mm-hmm.
love being able to go out in nature and, have a walk, or
Right.
experiment with what your body can do if you do gymnastics or something like that. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
many different forms of movement. It's amazing. But I love that
Exactly.
it all just stems back to that motivation. Like, what's your reason
Right.
behind it?
Yeah, and I think making a plan too in terms of if they are getting back into exercise, what are these markers for them that might be a red flag? Can you name a few for me? Because then they're recognizing old patterns that aren't going to serve them going forward. And if we can have an honest conversation about that, like I'm totally willing to proceed with exercise again because you are recognizing what was going on in the past wasn't serving you. So, how can we move forward where we're at now and then future self that is going to make this a new pattern in your life that is healthy, that is sustainable, and that is allowing you to experiment with what your body can do while nourished?
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because my next question for you was, once someone does actually get back into exercise, how can they make sure that they don't slip back down that slope to disordered habits and behaviors?
Yeah, I think a huge piece of that is staying consistent with your treatment team, with your coach, with whoever is that person for you. Have that accountability partner or those accountability people that you can tell, hey, these are some signs that I know I need to look for, but also I might need you to look for. Like, you might need to be my mirror here because sometimes I don't recognize them right away. Like, they aren't a red flag like they should be. Sometimes people who have had a problem with exercise or have had an eating disorder, those red flags tend to kind of pop up a lot slower. So I think having people in your corner that can say, hey, like, can you just tell me why you're doing this or what's your reason behind it? Like, can just refresh me a little bit to have that honest conversation on like where they're at and what the intention behind what they're doing is and why that concern may be raised. Huge.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
even
I
in
think
their,
just
oh, sorry,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Even in their response to that, like if someone's questioning them on their behaviors, they will
Mm-hmm.
learn within their answer what their true motivation is. Because if someone
Mm-hmm.
asks them, like, hey, I've noticed that you are going to the gym a bit more, like, just wanted to check in because you mentioned
Yeah.
this might be a bit of a red flag. If you then answer in a really defensive manner and you feel like
Mm-hmm.
you have to defend yourself and you're being attacked, that's a bit of a sign to yourself, oh, wait, hey, maybe I'm not doing this for the right reasons. Because another part
Yes.
of eating disorders and overexercising is a huge amount of secrecy. And so if you
Mm-hmm.
notice yourself starting to be quite secretive again, it's a really good sign that your eating disorder is piping back in and it doesn't want anyone around you to protect you from it. And it just
Right.
wants you to slip back into bad habits.
Right. Or the eating disorder, it's like, it's not that bad yet. Like, we're still okay. So I think that's a huge point that you bring up is just being willing to have that honest conversation. And if you are responding defensively, like, that is another red flag of like, hey, this isn't trending in the direction I am meaning for it to trend. I need to kind of take a step back here, reassess where I'm at and how I'm going to move forward with the people that I trust the most, with my team, with my family, with my friends, and really rely, like I said, on that mirror because sometimes we can't gauge that ourselves.
No, especially when we've come from, like, for many people, quite extremes of
Mm-hmm.
overexercising or disordered eating.
Yeah.
Once we get to just a normal point, but we start slipping a little bit
Mm-hmm.
compared to an extreme that we've had, that doesn't seem like much. So it's easy to think, oh,
Correct.
it's fine. It's still
Mm-hmm.
normal. But even
Yeah.
on one side of normal can be a slippery slope for someone that's been down that path before.
Exactly. I think comparison too would be a huge like red flag in terms of if somebody is like, well, they're doing it. And it's like, well, correct, but we don't know their reasoning behind it either. We need to focus on our reasoning, our values, our goals, and what is a slippery slope for us is not necessarily a slippery slope for somebody else. Normal exercise to each person is so different, and what sets them over the edge is so different. We need to really kind of hone in on what that is for each individual, and like myself as the coach and myself as the trainer is, okay, this is not the goal we set though. We set this goal for a purpose out of intention. Why can't we stick to it because somebody else is doing something differently? Like there's that mindset piece again.
Yeah. Is your motivation to be better than them? Because
Mm-hmm.
then we're actually not sticking to our values.
Correct.
I love that
Yes.
you brought that up. Comparison can be such a huge part of over-exercising and disordered eating because, the sneaky little voice comes in and, oh, but they're doing more or they're eating
Mm-hmm.
less, and makes it
So it
really
must be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
everyone's different.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
not
And
going
that's
to exercise the same amount as a D1 athlete.
exactly.
And we're
Yeah.
not going to have the same meal plan. But that doesn't mean
Yep.
either one of us is doing the wrong thing. Just means
Correct.
we each have our own motivations. We each have our own goals.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to have the same outcomes.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing in today's society too, is there's a right and wrong of like exercise almost. And it's like, who wrote this rule book? Because
Yeah.
last I checked, like everybody's outlook and exercise patterns and lifestyles are just vastly different, that how can we even begin to compare? We have no idea what that other person's lifestyle looks like or what their mental health looks like. We have no clue.
Yeah. Honestly, so true. Like, people make the fastest assumptions. You might be out on a run and someone runs past you and you think, oh my gosh, my pace is so slow. But who
Hmm.
knows? They might be just doing 1 kilometer and you're on your like 4th kilometer. So you're going slow
Right.
and they're going fast.
You
Or
never know.
maybe this is the first time they've been for a run in a couple of years. Like, there's
Hmm.
no way of knowing what another
Exactly.
person's story is.
Right. But the story we tell ourselves, or the story our eating disorder tends to tell us, is that we're not doing enough. And that's where we get in that trap again of, well, it's not that bad, and I can go a little bit more because this person did, even though we have no proof of that. If I just go a little bit more, it'll be fine. And then it's a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And now we're back to patterns, and it's really hard to stop that obsessive thinking around exercise. And we kind of have to go back and reassess everything again, when instead we should have just been like, hey, like that person's goals might be different than mine. Maybe I should check in with my therapist or my dietitian or my coach or whoever that person is to really see, like, where am I at right now?
Yeah. And for some people who don't have access to these, therapists or coaches
Mm-hmm.
or sort of treatment people, just finding your own values and always
Mm-hmm.
bringing yourself back to that. If you're not too sure where to start with your values, I have an episode on that. Or you just Google, what are
Mm-hmm.
values? Look at them, see what aligns with you. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you find things that trigger you, coming back to those values, is this
Yeah.
behavior that's been triggered, does it align with my values?
Right. And I think even writing that down, have that notebook be that person for you. Have that notebook be your reminder, be your mirror, because you wrote that down for a reason. You researched and found that information for a reason. Keep that as your reminder. If you don't have access, get a notebook, get a sticky note, stick it up on your mirror somewhere where you can access that when you are uncertain of where you are lying with your values.
Yeah. Even if you do have a coach and you do have these external resources, doing
Mm,
that in addition can just really help
absolutely.
to strengthen it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, writing it down really kind of like makes it stick, and then is an easy, accessible piece of paper or sticky note or journal or whatever it is, that it's like, okay, I'm going to reflect back on this. Okay, this is why I did it. And then if you do have the access, hey, I had to reflect back to my journal. Like, this is what I wrote down. Like, do you remember a conversation we had about this? Help me understand this better. I think it's just very valuable to have that in as many places as possible.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a promise to yourself as well. Because if
Mm-hmm.
further down the track, you're starting to drift away from these things, you're like, you look back at it though and you're like,
Right.
that was actually really important to my inner self. So maybe I
Absolutely.
do need to take a look at this again and realign what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that.
I also loved before how you talked about now there's this like right and wrong way to exercise. It's like people
Hmm.
think if you're not in the gym every day before work, you're not doing it right. And if you're not like
Exactly.
having your greens powders and like all these things, then you're doing it wrong, which I think
Yeah.
is just there's so much misinformation that's spread out there because there's
Hmm.
so many different ways to move your body. And each person will have different energy levels on each days. Some people have chronic illnesses. Some people have
Yep.
disabilities. Like it's going to look different for everyone. Maybe for you, your form of movement is just a walk every now and then, or
Hmm.
like maybe you love going swimming, maybe you love
Hmm.
yoga, but there are so many different ways. And I think people need to let go of this idea that the only way to actually be fit and healthy and have a good relationship with exercise is to meal prep, go to the gym every day, and drink your
Yeah.
greens and protein shakes.
It's, you are so right on that. Like, that is the epitome of, if you are doing fitness right, you're checking all of these boxes. And it's like, that, well, if we really look at it, everything you just listed off, the meal prepping, and then people have to have these right outfits to go to the gym. And it's like, none of this actually has to do with your relationship with exercise. Like,
Yeah.
none of it. Somebody could be a mom, like I'm a mom, I have a 2-year old toddler. That some days is my form of exercise. Like chasing around a toddler and eating their scraps, like that is me appreciating what my body can do because it is my form of movement for the day. I am proud of what my body, one, created, and two, that I'm able to keep up with my child.
Yeah.
It looks so different for everybody. It could be going to the gym, it could be going to the beach, going swimming, playing your sport, chasing your kid. You don't know. Going on a walk with a parent, a loved one, a husband, girlfriend, whatever it might be. That's all appreciating your body. And I think we've gotten away from that in just like, I am so thankful that my body can move in the ways that I am capable of, even with a disability, even with a chronic illness. I'm thankful for my body and the things it is providing me.
Yeah.
I don't know when it became supplements and gym outfits and all of this stuff that has to be done to be that fitness person and you're
Yeah.
doing it right.
Like there are so many ways of being fit, yet we've put it all down to this one body type,
Mm-hmm.
this one stereotype, when really it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what your body looks like. Like you
Yep.
could be small or in a large body, and they could
Mm-hmm.
have equal or different amount of fitness, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
dependent on your body or the type of exercise you do.
No. And truly, I believe that you cannot be physically fit without being mentally fit. You have to exercise that mental fitness in order for it to translate over to your body because that just is never going to sustain. You have to be right in your mind and in your relationship with your body in order to maintain any sort of physical fitness.
Yeah. Because as well, if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, like if your mind
Mm-hmm.
is not fit and you're doing all these things for the wrong reasons, you're going to get to a point where you break and you're not
Mm-hmm.
able to do it anymore. And that's not
Exactly.
fitness because fitness
No.
is a long term goal. It's not a
Yes.
short term push yourself until you break and
Mm-hmm.
then start again. It's a long
Exactly.
term goal that goes about honoring your body for your life.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it turns into a value. I think that is when you truly turn fitness into a core value and not just this goal of, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to achieve X, Y, and Z. It turns into a lifestyle that you truly value everything your mind and body can do when properly working together.
Yeah. And I think knowing that it's a lifestyle and a long term thing can also help in if there's one day where you feel particularly tired and you can't exercise, being okay with that and
Mm-hmm.
realizing, this is a long term thing. This one day right here, if I don't exercise, it's not a big deal. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
I'm lazy. It doesn't mean I'm not going anywhere. It means that I'm
Mm-hmm.
honoring my body and that
Mm-hmm.
long term, I'm going to be more fit and healthy.
Exactly. I think you're with taking care of your body and taking rest days, you are exactly what you said, honoring your body and what it can do. And when you truly listen to your body, it tells you everything you need to know so that you can progress forward and move forward. And it's not just this, I'm going to push, I'm going to push, I'm going to push, and then I'm going to break. And then, okay, it's like, I'm okay now. And then I'm going to push, I'm going to push, I'm going to push, and then I'm going to break again. It's just this fluidity that fitness can have. And it's this beautiful process that if you allow yourself to just be in it, instead of setting these expectations within it, that it is truly something that can be lifelong and that can set an example for other people around you that may not have that information.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it so much less overwhelming when you know that your body is the one guiding you and not some external pressure, whether that external pressure is another person or comparison or your own thoughts. Knowing that your body is what's guiding you can make it so much easier, because if you wake up and you think, oh my God, I have to do a workout, but you're actually so drained and tired and have no energy, if you know that your body is the one guiding you, you'll be okay letting that go.
Yep.
And it won't ruin your day or your week.
Exactly. And then the next day you just, hey, you reassess. And it's like, what are we doing today, body? Like, what do we need to do? How are we feeling? Okay, we can do our workout today. We can go for a walk today. Like, that sounds amazing. Thank you. Being grateful for the ability to be in tune with your body is a skill that I truly think to master is so rare.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes movement so much more enjoyable when you're doing the movement that aligns with your body at that moment. Because if I actually feel like going for a run, it feels amazing. But if I don't feel like going for a run and I go for a run, that's going to feel like rubbish.
Oh, terrible. Absolutely.
And same goes for the gym. Like, if you go to the gym but you don't have the energy, you're just going to want to lie on the floor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually go with the energy and like the motivation. You're going to pump it out. You're going to go away feeling amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Music's going to sound better. Everything's going to be better. It's just going to be, you're setting yourself up for a better outcome. And if you're doing it at the beginning of your day or the end of your day, like, you are going to walk away feeling differently than if you just forced yourself to go because you thought you had to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so not only does it help in this sort of fitness and health area, but it will help with your mood overall. And so not only will your relationship with yourself be better, but your relationship with others, because you won't be grumpy and fatigued.
Right. I think so many people it's an expectation that it's like, oh, if you exercise, that helps your mood, like you said. And it's like, well, it can only help your mood if you're listening to your body and your mind, of like when you're actually in the mood to go and do something and you're taking care of your body. Because otherwise, you are going to be grumpy. You're going to be fatigued. You're not going to present as your best self in terms of mood, because you forced yourself to do something against what your body and mind were saying.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to result in that same endorphin that everybody speaks of in like the healthcare industry, of saying like, well, you need to exercise so it helps your mood. It truly does if you are in tune with your body.
Yeah. And if you're not, and you do it when you're not, the next day you're going to feel it as well.
Yeah. And it affects your mood differently.
You took more than you had, and so the next day you're left with even less. Whereas if you had listened to it on that day where you didn't have much energy and you rested and you didn't go for a run, the next day you might wake up with heaps of energy and be ready for a run.
Exactly. And you probably are, and I don't want to use like making up for, you rested and you are having a quality workout the next day. Whereas if you force yourself, you're going to have an ineffective workout today and an ineffective workout tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like by forcing yourself, you're actually achieving greater results. By forcing yourself, you're achieving lesser results, and you're actually putting your body at more risk of injury and making it more likely that you'll be fatigued and grumpy.
Yes, exactly. It's not helping the mood then.
No, not at all. It's been so interesting talking to you, Jay. Thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it.
Before we end, I would like to ask you, if there was only one thing that listeners took away from today's podcast, what would you want it to be?
I think I want to touch back on those values, like really get in tune with your values around exercise specifically. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why is it important to you? How can you create a lifestyle around it that is of benefits that you're really taking care of and fueling your body. And if you're not in that position right now, like trying to recenter yourself, maybe reaching out for help, really asking yourself those tough questions of why am I doing this? And does this align with my overall values that are taking me throughout life?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's an amazing thing to end with. Before we do end, on these values of exercise, I think for some people they might struggle to figure out what that may be. Do you have any examples from either yourself or from people that you've worked with, what some sort of examples of values around exercise may be?
Absolutely. So mine personally, I took it from I had to do this. I have to do X, Y, and Z because I want to achieve a certain body. So how I look at it as, and I, from somebody that I know who is very, very wise in the eating disorder field, goals are something that either are achieved or not achieved. And values are something that are lifelong. So values are something that carries us in the motions we go through every single day. Goals, we can set goals, we may achieve them, we may not achieve them. So with exercise, I value the fact that my body is capable of waking up every day and doing a workout. And for me, I love lifting weights. Like that is something that I loved. During my eating disorder, I thought I loved cardio. I thought I loved going for runs. I thought I loved being on the treadmill. That wasn't aligning with my values. I was forcing myself to do something for this unachievable outcome, which was changing my body, making my body smaller. Whereas I love the feeling and the capability of being stronger and looking at my progress as yesterday I lifted 10 pounds and today it was 20. And it's like, I'm taking care of my body and it is capable of doing that. And I also value my time in rest because I am thankful for my body, for what it has done for me, for what it continues to allow me to do. It doesn't have to do that, but it does every single day that I choose to wake up and take care of it. I am aligning myself with my values and being like, thank you so much for being able to take me through this life and get stronger every single day. And I show myself love and I give myself grace and I love being able to rest and recharge. And then exercise is sometimes lifting weights and sometimes chasing my toddler. It's not a thought anymore. It's just the joy of movement. And I find joy in that every single day, no matter what it looks like.
And I love that you're showing that that change is possible. That change from I have to do this because I don't like myself and I am doing this to change myself to I get to do this. And I'm so glad that I can because it feels great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know that for some people, some of their like motivations behind exercise as well are like they want to stay agile. They want to, when they have kids, like you were saying, they want to be able to chase them around. They want to be able to, when they're an old lady, pick up their grandkids. So I think these sort of values that are long-term and not, short-term changes or things like that can be so helpful in redefining your relationship with exercise.
Absolutely. And I think you just have a deeper connection to self and like truly in your soul of who you are and why you're doing the movement you're doing. And it's for some people truly find through this process, I don't enjoy exercising. And it's like, okay, cool. Let's redefine what exercise means to you. Do you enjoy going for walks? Do you enjoy nature? Do you enjoy playing tennis with your partner? Whatever that is, we don't have to look at it as this definition of exercise.
Yeah.
Redefining and reconnecting with your values is finding what you actually enjoy doing that brings you joy and fulfillment, and it doesn't have to look like anybody else's. That's the biggest distinction. You don't have to look a certain way, and your process can be vastly different from everybody else's, and you're okay with that.
Yeah. I love that you touched on that because I think lots of people have this fear that, but what if I stop and I actually realize I don't like exercise? And I think that's where it comes in, this sort of stereotype of exercise is running on the treadmill or like doing a marathon or something like that, when really there are so many options, like dancing, going for walks, like you said, yoga, swimming, even what's it called, aqua aerobics. Like there are so many ways to move your body, and all of them are good. None of them are the one and be all. Forgot what that saying is, the be all end all or whatever it is.
End all be all, yeah.
Something like that. And so it's really good to think about that just there are so many ways you can move your body and finding which one you like.
And I think people don't realize that on a daily basis to perform tasks of just living, you are moving your body. And so that fear of, oh my gosh, if I don't like exercise, it's like you may not like the exercise that your eating disorder liked. And that is okay. But if you're getting up every day and you are happy to be getting up every single day, the movement of getting out of bed is movement, and find joy in that movement.
Yeah.
You are so lucky to be here. Give yourself the grace to say, I am okay with not loving somebody else's version of exercise.
Yeah.
We'll find it. It looks so different.
Yeah. And I think just going away with that feeling of I'm okay finding what sort of movement feels good and aligns with my values.
Absolutely.
I think that's an amazing message to leave people with. Thank you so much for talking today. It's been really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
I hope that you guys enjoyed that chat with Taylor as much as I did, and that you can take away her final message to really get in tune with your values. Asking yourself, why are you doing the things that you do? And do your behaviors really align with your values? Taylor has definitely left us with some really interesting questions. Don't forget, you are valid no matter what your experience is. You are worthy no matter what you accomplish, and you are enough regardless of what you look like. Until next time, keep being brave.